My name is Anastasia Broadus. I am 29 years old, and I am a mediator with Mediation First in Washington County. Mediation is conflict resolution and collaborative decision making, and that is who I am. My walk with God is extremely important. I know that if it wasn't for Him, that everything is just basically impossible. Being with God and walking with Him in the past couple years that I have been, not only have I learned a lot and have gained foundation, but I now have a blueprint that gets me through life. And without God and the blueprint, I'm not really sure where I would be. So a time in my life when I'm not sure, it was a tough time, and I'm not sure I would have gotten through it without God being in my life, was the deliverance of a number of things, but more importantly, the deliverance of going, and after I went to college, I decided that I was going to live an alternate lifestyle. And so with that being said, I was in college and I just started, I dated women, and it was just this thing of oh, that wasn't really who I was, and not having I'm not going to say love and attention from people that I should have had it from, but I went because I was on my own and started seeking it a different way. And so from that, when I came back, it was just this is who I thought. I had adopted something that I thought that I was, and what I had to do was I had to go back to the foundation of what I've known and what I was learning currently at the time, and things began to be uncomfortable. I couldn't walk with God and live this lifestyle at the same time, so then it was a time of hiding. It was either hide yourself, because there was shame and guilt that came with it, because I knew that that is not who I was, and I knew it's not the lifestyle that I should have been living. And so the way to do that was through prayer and fasting of God, I need this to be gone, because that's not who I was. And so just the deliverance from living that lifestyle to, I could see the promises, I could read the promises of what God told me and said who I was, but at that time I didn't believe it. Although I love God and wanted to continue to walk with Him, it was just, I didn't believe it for myself. So I had to go back to the foundation. I had to go back to who God said I was, and everything that He basically laid out before His people to say, this is who you are. And I had to go back to relying on that. And so without Him, I'm not sure I would have been completely delivered from a lifestyle that I knew was not me. So getting out of it or being delivered from it wasn't an easy thing. It's not something that, the prayer and then automatically it just being delivered. And so the way that I got to deliverance was, of course, through prayer and all of that, and through reading the Word. But, when you're in a place that you should not be, it took more than just a prayer here and there. What it really took for me was I personally removed myself, was kind of in a relationship at the time, and just had to remove myself from the person, because I figured, if I remove myself from her, then this is going to be easy. It'll just be cut and dry. But then there's feelings associated with it. So that was the thing that I could not seem to shake, the feeling that I thought that I was supposed to be with this person who happened to be a female, although I think we all grow up with this cookie cutter thing of our parents think that we are supposed to grow up, and if you're a female, you're supposed to marry a man, it's supposed to be a white picket fence, you're supposed to have babies, and that's just what I feel like most parents think that we're supposed to do. And because in my mind, what I was doing, it didn't fit that image of what I think that parents believe that their kids should do. You have a relationship, you get married, then you have your kids, and then you have this immaculate house, and it didn't fit in there. So it was, for me, it was in my mind okay, something's wrong with me. And then when I started to tell people, because people knew, but it wasn't broadcasted out there, but I started to tell people, and childhood people would look at me as in that look of you've been looking at me this way for your entire life, and that's not the case. So removing myself, the temptation after removing myself was still there because I still had feelings for an individual that I knew was not my forever. So then she decided that, she wanted to actually be my forever, and she thought that it would be great if we got engaged to be married. And the point for me that was like, okay, this is not it, was when there was a ring presented and there were talks of just getting married in front of my parents and in front of other people. Like, it's not something that I could stand before God or my parents and ask for God to bless this very thing that is an abomination. Like, to bless this very thing that I know that He would not be pleased with. And so at that point for me, that is when it was like, you know what, this is done. But I had to go through the deliverance portion with Him, because just me doing it on my own, it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough for me to separate myself from other females. It wasn't enough for me to say, oh, I'm not even gonna look at a person, because even after then, there still was feelings. There still was looking like, oh, you know what, like, this person and myself would make a really cute couple. It had to be this toiling with God of like, I just want it gone. And I remember countless nights crying and just praying and just asking God I needed to be delivered from it, because I wanted everything that He had for me. And that was a place in my walk where I felt like I was stagnant. Nothing was moving. And because nothing was moving, it wasn't in my purpose to be still. And so those were the steps that I took. Since then, I have been in a relationship, and it was a successful relationship, but we were headed in two separate directions just in life. And so it ended up not working. But the part after that, what I needed was that relationship that I got into afterwards, which happened to be with a man. After that, I was just doing it because I needed to also be convinced that, like, okay, that person is not who I am anymore. And God delivered me from that thing. To any female that I saw, there were no feelings, there was no temptation after that. But I got into this relationship, but I was still not whole. I wasn't healed from what the deliverance that I just got and any of that. Like, I was delivered, but I didn't feel like I was completely whole. And so after that relationship ended, it was good that it did, because then I got to know myself. And so even years in my singleness, to really shed off all of the things that I had to go through or traumas of life, to shed all of those things and to become whole in God. And so now in my single years, I'm not lonely, I'm not alone, because my being alone with God now is the most sacred thing that I could be. And so from the deliverance to jumping into something that I wasn't ready for, then to come out of that and to spend these last couple years single, and to really shed and take off everything and to really put on all of the layers of who God calls me to be, it's been the most exhilarating years of my life. So in my family, my transformation in Christ, the work that God does in and through me still, I will say, I'm not sure about my whole entire family, but the one person has been my mom. I can see just the difference in her just by, when something is going on with someone, she'll immediately send me a text message or she'll call me and say, hey, can you pray for this person? And my pushback to her is like, we serve the same God, so just as well as I can pray, so she can as well. And so just by her tone of voice, the way that she speaks to me has tremendously changed. It was a little uncomfortable for a little bit because she could not understand that every time the doors of the church were open, I was there, and I was there to serve. And that continued for a while. And for her, she didn't quite get it. So then to see the difference of the lifestyle being delivered from homosexuality and all of that, like, that for her was like, oh, this God thing is actually working. I might want to, scale back a little bit. And since that time, she has, God bless you. She prays for people, and she makes it known that she is very proud of her daughter who is serving in the church. And so just her language and her tone has tremendously changed. And I do believe it's because I am the example. Being the first in my family to do a lot of things, I'm not the first one to be saved, I don't believe so, but just the whole transformation of the whole person, I do believe I am the example. I see myself still spreading the gospel. I see myself definitely being a minister. In my job, I've seen, me going from state to state and, choosing the real estate for mediation centers and being able to fly back to sign the deal and then go back one more time for the grand opening and to oversee the opening of mediation centers around the world. And so being able to do that and also build ministry at the same time, that's the best of both worlds. So in the next couple years, I see myself, those plans that have been written down and those things that God has shown me, still being able to do that, as well as continuing to spread the gospel. So to be impacted by Pastor Jamal has been great. I feel like it's definitely carried me to where I am today, but not only him, but also Pastor Teresa. So I'll start with her. Through New Life, I learned a lot. I got a lot of foundation, but to see a woman serving God that is a black woman serving God. I know that you grow up in a lot of, growing up churches, you see, black people everywhere, but to see the selflessness and the sacrifice from her was something that definitely impacted me, because it showed that she could come out of her role as a first lady and she could serve without being put on a pedestal and needing to stay there for herself. To come down from out of her position to serve is not something that I've seen a lot when it comes to first ladies in the church. So to see that sacrifice and that selflessness come from her and be able to serve no matter who it was, but to have that servant's heart and to serve was something that definitely impacted me, that I would like to say that in my years of life that I continue to do now and will continue to. Pastor Jamal, just the teaching in general, gave the foundation. To build a house, you have to have a stable foundation. And so the teachings that came from him, that came from God, it is foundation. And it's something that even, in the transition of New Life and the birth of Impact, that as they moved on and as, I moved on in my life, it's something that through the foundation and the teaching, you can't just teach anything or bring me anything, because I've been taught by a teacher. And so Pastor Jamal being the teacher, whenever there's been, sermons preached and stuff like that, it's been like, does this line up with what God gave Pastor Jamal that he gave to me? Does this line up with the word? And so being able to discern is what I've also learned, to be able to discern, is this God or is this something that someone is just saying and maybe using God's name? And so from that foundation, I've been able to build upon the house. And so to this day, can't just feed me anything and think I'm going to sit there at that table. It has to be sound teaching. And if it had not been for that sound teaching, I don't know where I'd be.